Well, today we're getting a shot of the backyard because I don't usually make these during the daytime, and I just don't like the way that I look on camera right now. My hair's a mess and no makeup, all that good stuff. Um, anyway, the last story I told was about my year and a half with the older man. And I believe I graduated college um, towards the end of my time with him. And left him not too long after that, maybe a few months. And I'm going to say that this was the beginning of the wild stage of my 20s. I believe I was about 21, I would have been about 21. And, well, I hadn't spent a whole lot of time being single since I had gotten out on my own. I'd had a boyfriend most of the time. And so I guess I started enjoying my freedom a little bit. The only reasons I can give, I guess, for me going as wild as I did for as long as I did was, well, obviously because I had spent, 18, 19 years of my life with very little freedom. And I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder when it came to guys in general because of all the treatment when I was an adolescent. I just always, other than, the one real boyfriend I'd had while I was still in high school, I had spent so many years just feeling completely unattractive and just rejected all the time. I mean, ultimately, even by that boyfriend who, decided to go after my my sociopathic cousin. That didn't last, but anyway. So I, and, looking back at it and listening to things that other people say, I guess I can't really say why that I put so much of my self-worth into what other people's opinions were of me in that one area, at least. As far as my brains, my intelligence level, my ability to do anything academic, my ability to learn most anything, I had absolute confidence in that. I mean, that had been proven for, many times, many years. But as far as my attractiveness and all of that rejection, for some reason, that really got to me. I was extraordinarily sensitive in that area. I guess I still am. And so all of that rejection gave me a very cavalier attitude about guys, and for quite some time there, I just didn't really have much of a conscience about it. I didn't have a lot of moral standing in that area as far as whether I hurt them or not, whether I cheated on them or not. I had already had at least one boyfriend that I had cheated on, and when I left the older man, that really did a number on him, which still, it was foolish for either one of us to have ever been in that relationship in the first place. So, but anyway, so after I left him, at some point, I ran into a guy that I had known in, just a little bit in high school. I think he was maybe a year ahead of me, and at a bar, because I started going out. I was 21, and I discovered that I really liked to dance, and I would drink fairly regularly. This was really the only time in my life that I'd ever have drunk very much. Always had a low tolerance, though. I never built it up to that much because I didn't, drink daily or sit around drinking all day, I just like to go out and get a buzz and dance and flirt and have fun. And this guy that I'd run into was the drummer for a band that was still getting started up, basically a metal band, and he introduced me to the rest of the band, and I really enjoyed hanging around them, listening to their music. We would smoke weed and drink some, so I started going to all of their practices, all of their gigs. I was a groupie, basically. And I tried dating a couple of them briefly, but ended up with the lead guitar player, who was really talented. His name was Todd. He was kind of a strange guy. Not a good looking guy at all, but I've never been, that's never been an overriding factor for me, someone's physical appearance. It's always been the intelligence and personality that has attracted me more so than the physical appearance, generally, at least as far as an actual relationship with someone. And Todd was very intelligent, just kind of odd. It's hard to describe. It was in the way that he talked, basically. I think he was about 5 years older than me, which I was 22 by this time. Not a big deal. And I had actually started singing in a band myself. So we had a really good time for quite some time, and then I think both our bands kind of disintegrated, and I had picked up a second job to make some more money, and I got bored. Todd was a good guy, and in many ways we were very compatible. But, and maybe, maybe we were extremely compatible, but I wasn't at the right point to be able to see any of that. Because looking back at it now, I was going through a manic phase. When I had met him, and part of the time that we were together, maybe all the time that we were together, I don't remember exactly, but I just, when I'm in a manic phase, I just want to go, do, whatever I can. It's all about excitement of some kind. I wanted to smoke weed and drink and party and just, I don't know. I don't even really know how to describe a manic episode very well. I wish I did, but his personality was very, very subservient to mine. And that, at least at the time and where my frame of mind was, it just became absolutely, totally boring for me. And one day at work, I worked in the mall at the time, I ran into this guy. It's actually the guy that I cheated on the older man with, that he found out about and left me for, and I eventually got him to come back. But I ran into the same guy. And the attraction was still there, apparently, on both sides. And neither one of us was with the person that we were with when we had known each other before. Because at the time, he had been with living with an older woman. So it was kind of weird how that went. So I ran into him. I started talking to him because, I was bored with Todd. I wasn't really wanting to be with him anymore. I was interested in being with this guy, and he was interested in me. And I started cheating on Todd. And I finally told Todd. And he was extremely upset. We were living together. He moved out. And this other guy moved in. His name was Dewey. And, there's a bit more to tell about Todd over the years. This is a small town. The population's 60,000. And musicians of the same age tend to know one another at least a little, because there's only a certain number of performance venues in this town, and bars and whatever, and a lot of people have played in different bands together. And so several years later, probably about 7 years later maybe, I had started dating this guy named Mark. And it turns out that he was very good friends with Todd. And Mark had moved in with me, and he told me that he could not tell Todd where he was living when Todd asked him, because if Todd knew that Mark was seeing me, that Todd would be extremely upset. And I was kind of amazed by that because this was 7 years later, and I would have thought that Todd would have gotten past that. Well, there's also a brief period before that I had run into Todd a little, but I'll have to come back to that with the next episode that I talk about because it's too complicated. But anyway, the story with Todd actually progresses on to last year, which would have now been 27 years after he and I were together. And, you know, by this time, Todd has been married, had a kid who is actually just a year older than my own son, since Todd, his son and my son were really good friends, kind of grew up together. And he would bring his son over to the house sometimes, pick him up here because he did spend some time over here, and we were just, you know, nice, cordial. Didn't have any like long conversations. Just basically, hi, how are you doing? See you later, kind of stuff. But just like it was no big deal. This was when my son was a teenager, so a few years ago. But last year I had messaged Todd about possibly working on some music together, and he had been interested in it, but we had just never found the time to get together. And he messaged me, I think early part of last year, and said that, to see if I was still interested, and said that he would have some time, he could work out some time. So we actually did start working on some music together, worked up several songs, played a couple of open mic performances downtown that went really well. And I mean, I thought it was a great musical partnership. I was completely and totally stoked about it because we had the same, a lot of the same tastes in music. He liked all the stuff that I was doing. He had some suggestions that I was interested in. He's an excellent guitar player, so it went, we just played together, well, naturally. And then, but apparently he had a very redneck type girlfriend who was suspicious and jealous, and put a stop to him spending any time with me just suddenly. I had seen him on a Monday, and 2 days later she's messaging me telling me to never talk to him again, and I was blown away because I had no idea this was going on. And I do believe that he did have some kind of interest in getting with me, and which still blows me away because I definitely am nothing like I was, 27 years ago when we were dating, and at least as far as physical appearance and, well, personality-wise, a lot of things have changed. So I don't know. It was it was a musical heartbreak. And I have not found anyone to do a duo with me since then, and I still kind of grieve over the loss of that a bit. I, and, you know, sometimes I've felt kind of responsible for Todd, his life going the way that it did, because he didn't seem to ever get over me, and, you know, he was in a miserable marriage. I kind of felt like he kind of settled for what he could get in his wife, and probably in this girlfriend too. He definitely seemed to either be attracted to very dominating women, and I will put myself in that group, or they were attracted to him, or both. I don't know, but that was just a strange story spread out over a very long time, and there's no happy endings in there for anyone that I can see.